Some men grow older, but they never truly mature, and Stoic philosophy does not soften or excuse this reality. These men often possess intelligence, talent, and opportunity, yet something essential is missing within them. They avoid discomfort, resist responsibility, and refuse honest self-examination. Instead of confronting their flaws, they defend them. Instead of learning from pain, they numb it. Their bodies age year after year, but emotionally and mentally they remain fixed at an earlier stage of life, repeating the same patterns, the same mistakes, and the same excuses with increasing confidence. What makes this stagnation dangerous is that life does not punish it immediately. Comfort continues, distractions remain available, and consequences are delayed. This delay creates the illusion that avoidance is working, that growth is optional, and that time alone will fix what effort refuses to address. Stoicism warns against this false safety. Life is patient, but it is never forgetful. Every avoided responsibility, every postponed decision, and every denied truth is quietly recorded. Time does not erase what is unresolved, it compounds it. Eventually, what was avoided early is collected later, often at a moment when escape is no longer possible. Health declines, relationships fracture, opportunities narrow, and the strength to change weakens. The man is then forced to confront in one season what he avoided for decades. Stoic philosophy teaches that maturity is not granted by age but earned through discipline, courage, and self-honesty. Those who refuse this work may feel free in the short term, but they pay a heavier price later, when life demands accountability and no longer accepts excuses. Age does not create a man. One of the greatest lies men come to believe is that maturity arrives automatically with time. Stoicism rejects this illusion without hesitation. Time does not build character, it only reveals what already exists beneath the surface. Years pass, hair grays, experience accumulates, but none of these guarantee wisdom. A man who avoids responsibility in his youth does not suddenly become responsible with age. Instead, he often becomes more articulate, more convincing, and more skilled at explaining why responsibility is someone else's fault. Time does not correct avoidance, it perfects the excuses around it. True maturity is not measured by how long a man has lived, but by how much weight he is willing to carry. A mature man accepts ownership of his actions, his habits, his failures, and the direction of his life without blaming circumstances, people, or fate. He does not wait for motivation, validation, or perfect conditions. He acts because he understands that responsibility is the price of self-respect. Stoicism teaches that strength is built not through comfort, but through willingly choosing what is difficult, necessary, and honest. Without this acceptance of responsibility, age becomes nothing more than accumulated history without growth. Life moves forward, but the man does not. He repeats the same patterns under different conditions, wondering why outcomes never change. Stoic wisdom is clear: maturity is a choice made daily, not a gift delivered by time. A man is not formed by the years he survives, but by the burdens he accepts and the discipline he applies to carry them well. Comfort as a slow poison. Comfort feels harmless, even desirable, which is why it quietly destroys so many men. The man who refuses growth organizes his life around ease, pleasure, and constant escape, mistaking temporary relief for lasting progress. He avoids challenges, evades responsibility, and distracts himself whenever life demands effort or introspection. Stoicism warns that comfort without discipline is a slow poison, weakening the mind, dulling the spirit, and leaving the body and soul unprepared for reality. What feels safe today often becomes the source of collapse tomorrow. When discomfort is avoided, resilience is never developed. Strength, patience, and courage are forged in struggle, not in ease. The man who trains only in comfort has no practice for life's inevitable storms. Minor setbacks overwhelm him, pressure crushes him, adversity exposes his untested character. Life eventually delivers hardship to everyone, and those who have sought only comfort discover too late that they have no foundation to withstand it. The mature man understands a fundamental Stoic truth: voluntary discomfort is training for life's unpredictability. He seeks challenges, embraces discipline, and willingly steps into situations that test his patience, courage, and endurance. By confronting hardship before it is forced upon him, he strengthens his body, sharpens his mind, and fortifies his spirit. In this way, discomfort becomes a tool, not an enemy, and the man who practices it in small doses lives ready, unshakable, and resilient when life finally demands his strength. The fear of responsibility. Responsibility exposes weakness, which is why so many immature men instinctively avoid it. The man-child delays decisions, sidesteps leadership, and quietly hopes that someone else will shoulder the burdens he refuses to bear. Every choice he evades leaves him lighter in effort but weaker in character, until he discovers, often too late, that life does not forgive avoidance. Comfort may mask fear temporarily, but it cannot replace the strength built through ownership. Stoicism teaches radical ownership, the principle that a man must take full responsibility for his actions, his responses, his effort, and the direction of his life, regardless of circumstance or obstacle. Ownership is not a punishment, nor is it a burden imposed by others. It is the source of true power, the foundation upon which confidence, resilience, and integrity are built. The man who embraces responsibility grows capable of steering his life through uncertainty, adversity, and the chaos of the world without being carried away by it. A man who refuses responsibility, however, is forever trapped in powerlessness. External control may appear to offer freedom, but it only amplifies dependence, doubt, and insecurity. Power begins not in circumstance or privilege, but in ownership, accepting the weight of one's choices and acting with courage and discipline despite fear. True maturity is revealed when a man stops hiding, stops blaming, and willingly stands in the arena of his own life, knowing that responsibility is not a threat, but the path to freedom. Emotional immaturity disguised as depth. Many men mistake raw emotional reactions for authenticity, believing that expressing every impulse, anger, or mood makes them real or deep. They equate volatility with passion, confusion with insight, and drama with meaning. Stoicism, however, teaches a different path: emotional mastery. It is not the absence of feeling, but the ability to experience emotions fully without allowing them to control thought or action. The man-child is ruled by moods, pride, insecurity, and impulse, reacting instantly to every slight or challenge, letting his emotions dictate his words, his decisions, and even the trajectory of his life. A mature man, in contrast, feels deeply but responds wisely. He acknowledges anger, fear, or sadness without surrendering to them. He pauses before action, weighs the consequences, and chooses clarity over chaos. Emotional discipline is often misunderstood as coldness, but it is quite the opposite. It is the cultivation of presence, self-awareness, and intentionality. It allows a man to act with precision, integrity, and purpose rather than being carried by every passing sensation. Without emotional control, no other aspect of life can be truly managed. Habits, decisions, relationships, and responsibilities all bend to the sway of ungoverned emotions. Without emotional control, no other aspect of life can be truly managed. Habits, decisions, relationships, and responsibilities all bend to the sway of ungoverned emotions. The man who cannot regulate his inner state will perpetually struggle, regardless of intelligence, opportunity, or age. Emotional maturity, therefore, is not optional. It is the foundation for freedom, resilience, and the ability to steer life in a chosen direction rather than drifting wherever impulse carries him. Dependence on validation. The need for approval is a subtle but powerful weakness that traps many men in immaturity. The man-child ties his self-worth to praise, attention, and recognition, constantly seeking reassurance from the world to feel adequate. Every compliment becomes a temporary high, and every criticism feels like a personal failure. His confidence is fragile because it is borrowed, built on external affirmation rather than inner conviction. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Independence of judgment, the ability to stand firm in one's values and principles without needing applause or approval from others. When validation becomes a necessity, life becomes a constant negotiation with external opinions. Criticism feels like an attack, disagreement feels like rejection, and every social interaction carries invisible pressure. The man who relies on validation is never free, his actions are guided by fear of disapproval rather than clarity of purpose. He lives in the shadows of others' expectations, never truly testing his own strength or exploring his own potential. The mature man, however, anchors his sense of self internally. His confidence is not dependent on who praises him or who criticizes him. He knows his values, understands his purpose, and acts according to his principles, not the approval of the crowd. Independence from validation allows him to face truth without fear, make decisions without hesitation, and live fully without apology. True maturity emerges when a man measures himself by his own standards, not the fleeting judgments of others. Escaping solitude and silence. Silence reveals truths that many men are unwilling to face, and truth is often uncomfortable. This is why man-children instinctively fear solitude. They rush to fill every quiet moment with noise, entertainment, and distraction, avoiding the reflection that could confront their weaknesses, habits, and unresolved fears. Life's still moments become unbearable because they expose the parts of themselves they have ignored or denied. Stoicism teaches that solitude is not a punishment or loneliness, it is training, a deliberate space for self-examination, discipline, and understanding. A man must learn to sit alone with his thoughts, facing the discomfort that arises without flinching. In these moments, he can observe patterns, confront flaws, and identify the direction in which his life is truly heading. Solitude is where emotional clarity is forged, where self-awareness grows, and where the foundation for meaningful action is laid. Without these periods of reflection, a man drifts through life guided by impulse, habit, and external influence rather than conscious choice. A man who cannot be alone, who cannot endure the quiet, cannot truly mature. He remains dependent on distractions, validation, or company to define his emotional state, perpetually avoiding the work required to strengthen his mind and character. True growth demands the courage to face oneself, to sit with discomfort, and to confront reality without escape. Only then can a man move from superficial existence to profound maturity, capable of navigating life with awareness, intentionality, and inner strength. Blame as a defense mechanism. Blame is a shield for the ego, offering temporary relief while quietly weakening the man. Immature men instinctively externalize responsibility for their suffering, pointing to people, circumstances, or fate as the source of their failures and frustrations. In doing so, they create an illusion of control, convincing themselves that they are victims of life rather than architects of their own responses. Stoicism teaches that while a man cannot control everything that happens, he is always fully responsible for how he reacts, interprets, and acts in any situation. Blame provides comfort without growth. It softens the sting of accountability, but it leaves the underlying issues unresolved and the character untested. Ownership, on the other hand, brings pain because it requires honesty, courage, and discipline. It demands that a man face his mistakes, confront his weaknesses, and make conscious choices despite fear or discomfort. While harder, this path strengthens the mind, fortifies the spirit, and gradually aligns life with purpose rather than impulse. The mature man chooses ownership every time, even when it is difficult or humbling. He understands that power is not in assigning fault but in accepting responsibility. By refusing to hide behind blame, he transforms setbacks into lessons, challenges into opportunities, and obstacles into evidence of his growing resilience. True strength is born not from avoiding discomfort, but from standing firmly in the arena of life, fully accountable for oneself. Slavery to pleasure. Modern life has made immaturity effortless, offering endless entertainment, instant gratification, and constant stimulation that keep men distracted, passive, and untested. The man-child drifts through this sea of pleasure, mistaking comfort for freedom, indulgence for success, and distraction for purpose. Stoicism, however, teaches that true freedom comes through restraint, not indulgence. A man who cannot deny himself even in small things is a prisoner to his desires, no matter how easy or luxurious his life appears. Discipline is often misunderstood as punishment, but in reality it is the highest form of self-respect. It is the conscious decision to place long-term growth and integrity above fleeting satisfaction. Pleasure, when uncontrolled, chains the mind and weakens the spirit. It offers temporary relief while eroding the foundation of character. The man who surrenders to every impulse is never tested, never strengthened, and never truly free. The mature man understands that self-mastery is not deprivation, it is empowerment. He enjoys life fully, but with awareness, control, and intention. Pleasure becomes a reward, not a tyrant, and comfort is earned rather than demanded. By practicing restraint, he builds resilience, sharpens focus, and cultivates the inner freedom that indulgence alone can never provide. True maturity is revealed when a man governs his desires instead of being governed by them. Refusal to accept reality. Man-children live in a constant state of resistance, wishing life would bend to their emotions, desires, or expectations. They complain, resent, and imagine that the world owes them understanding or fairness. Stoicism teaches a radically different path, acceptance without bitterness. Reality does not pause, justify itself, or alter its course to suit anyone's feelings. It is indifferent, impartial, and relentless. Energy spent resisting it, complaining about it, or wishing it were different is wasted. It achieves nothing and leaves the mind restless and weak. Acceptance, however, does not mean passivity or surrender. It is clarity of perception, a sharpened focus on what can be controlled, effort, resilience, and adaptation. A mature man recognizes that struggle is inevitable, that circumstances will be unfair, and that challenges cannot be wished away. Instead of railing against reality, he adjusts himself, his attitude, his actions, and his expectations. In doing so, he aligns his energy with what is possible rather than futilely battling what is not. By embracing reality on its own terms, the mature man gains freedom and effectiveness. He moves through life with presence and intentionality, responding with wisdom rather than reaction, and acting where it matters instead of complaining where it does not. Accepting reality allows him to grow, to endure, and to thrive, while the man-child remains trapped in frustration, perpetually disappointed by a world that refuses to conform to his whims. Delayed consequences. Life has a way of allowing immature behavior to go unpunished for years, creating the illusion that weakness, avoidance, and irresponsibility are safe. The man-child mistakes this delay for freedom, believing that shortcuts, excuses, and indulgence carry no cost. Stoicism teaches the wisdom of long-term thinking. Actions, habits, and choices always have consequences, even if they are not immediate. Time does not erase irresponsibility, it compounds it quietly, revealing the truth when escape is no longer possible. Eventually, life catches up. Careers stall, relationships strain or collapse, respect fades, and regret accumulates. The very pain and difficulty the man sought to avoid in youth returns later, often with greater force, leaving him unprepared and vulnerable. What seemed harmless at the moment, the avoidance of discipline, responsibility, or discomfort, becomes a heavy burden that cannot be ignored. Stoicism reminds us that foresight and preparation are forms of power, allowing a man to act in alignment with reality rather than react to consequences after they strike. The mature man chooses discipline early, understanding that discomfort in the present is far preferable to regret in the future. He invests in his character, his skills, and his relationships before crises demand it. By facing challenges and accepting responsibility in advance, he ensures that time works for him rather than against him. In this way, delayed consequences become a lesson in wisdom. Maturity is not accidental, it is cultivated through foresight, consistency, and the courage to act responsibly when it is easiest to avoid doing so. Self-command as true power. Stoicism teaches that true power is not found in wealth, status, or influence, it is found in self-command. A mature man governs his habits, emotions, time, and priorities with deliberate attention. He acts with purpose rather than impulse, and he responds to life's challenges with discipline instead of chaos. Without self-command, even minor obstacles feel insurmountable. Frustration, fear, and distraction dictate actions, leaving the man reactive and unsteady. With self-command, however, hardship becomes manageable. Challenges no longer dictate mood or motion, because the man has trained his mind and body to respond with focus and resilience. Self-mastery creates stability, and stability becomes the foundation of enduring strength. It allows a man to face adversity, resist temptation, and navigate uncertainty without being overwhelmed by circumstance or emotion. A man who cannot command himself will always be commanded by life. He becomes a passenger, driven by impulses, external pressures, and fleeting desires. The mature man, by contrast, carries authority within. Every thought, decision, and action is guided by discipline, clarity, and intention. In this way, self-command is not restriction, it is liberation, the ultimate power that ensures no challenge, person, or circumstance can control him. Why most men never change? Change is not easy, it demands honesty, humility, and the willingness to endure discomfort. Stoicism calls for ruthless self-examination, a fearless look at one's flaws, weaknesses, and patterns without excuses or justification. Most men, however, avoid this process. The man-child protects his ego by choosing comfort over truth, distraction over reflection, and denial over responsibility. He prefers illusions that feel safe to the difficult realities that demand growth. True maturity requires the opposite approach. The mature man willingly confronts the truths about himself, no matter how uncomfortable or painful they may be. He accepts responsibility for past mistakes, recognizes harmful habits, and works to correct them even when it challenges his pride or convenience. Growth is never found in avoidance, it emerges only through deliberate effort, courage, and self-awareness. This choice, the decision to face reality rather than hide from it, is what separates growth from stagnation. Men who refuse this work may age physically, gain experience, and accumulate knowledge, yet remain trapped in immaturity. Those who embrace it transform pain into wisdom, discomfort into discipline, and obstacles into stepping stones. Change is not guaranteed by time alone, it is earned through the relentless commitment to truth over comfort, action over avoidance, and self-mastery over indulgence. Maturity is not loud, dramatic, or performative. It reveals itself through restraint, responsibility, discipline, and calm strength. Stoicism does not promise happiness. It promises resilience. And resilience is the foundation of a meaningful life. Are you becoming stronger through discipline, or are you hiding weakness behind comfort and excuses? If you think I provide you valuable content, then please like this video, follow, subscribe, and comment your thoughts in the comment section.